Welcome to Pi M Squared, and today we'll be learning about experimental probability. So, experimental probability is the probability found by doing an experiment. Sounds kind of self-explanatory, right? So, for example, if you wanted to find out the experimental probability of, say, flipping a coin 10 times, you would actually flip a coin 10 times. It would be like heads, tails, heads, 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 tails, tails, heads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tails, heads. Is that 10? Yeah, that's 10. Okay, so in this case, if you wanted the experimental probability of the number of heads, it would be 6 out of 10 or 3/5. So in this experimental probability case, there would be a 3 out of 5 chance of getting heads. Well, we obviously know this is not actually true. For a coin, the theoretical probability is that there's a 1/2 chance of getting heads and 1/2 chance of getting tails. So experimental probability isn't very useful for these kinds of cases, as the only way that your experimental probability is going to get close to your theoretical probability is probably when you fulfill the law of large numbers, or which means that you just do the experiment like 1,000 times. But do you really want to flip a coin 1,000 times? No, right? So experimental probability is not very useful for these types of problems for this very reason. So when is experimental probability useful? Well, experimental probability is very useful for when you have something that cannot be theorized. For example, like it's the coronavirus, right? COVID-19 crisis right now. So if you want to test whether a drug or something, like say you have this drug, and you want to test whether it works to cure people of coronavirus, okay? You can't theoretically do it because you actually don't know how effective this will be. So experimental probability is what you would use to test whether or not this drug is actually useful or not. So you'd give it to like say 1,000 people, and if it say it didn't work in about 30% of it, then you would know that in 70% of people this drug was effective. And then that could be enough evidence to uh, find that this drug was actually useful. Well, of course, this is like you wouldn't actually do this for um, drugs and have this be the only method of testing. Like you would go through a bunch of other tests. But this is just a theoretical scenario where you could use experimental probability. It's usually used when theoretical probability is really not an option, as there you really don't know what the theoretical probability is. So that's all you need to know about experimental probability. It's just you do the experiment and find out what percent of those things that you did were actually successful or fulfilled your outcome. So it's just outcome over total events. The only difference from theoretical probability is that you actually did it. Okay, thank you for watching.